Right now, there's I don't know if this is
so here's the height of it, 104 meters, so a little over 300 feet. That's it?
Come on. You like the crowd. Huh? You like the crowd. No. Not on a deal like that. That's why you're sitting there. Not on a deal like that. You sit on the side and look into it.
I got it.
No. North of the make a recording of this. That's good. Yeah. The other guy all screwed up. I got a bunch of them. I read through they used to listen to a few of those.
He's a thinker.
Oh, he's a deep thinker. Background on it.
I wish I liked it.
Exactly, you nailed that.
He's engaged. Very much. That's what we need. We need
That's what I just kept about. I've got a certain folder for Jason and I have got all those only ones that I've got all kinds of folders. I know what it's, well, that folder should be there, Matt.
Yeah.
Just to figure out how to
well, that's the overall.
This part today somebody said some of they're just not big enough. And of that thing up there, I don't know. Back 2 years they used blades. And yeah, I never heard anybody say where they I don't know. Yeah, you never got off. No, I ain't none of that. None of that. None of that. Hey, stepping stone. None of that. And right now there's no worries on that.
Apparently the field, they're supposed to be 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, I guess there's short 2 and 3.
Huh? They're at the other side. Yeah, not the shoulder. They're on the 75 feet. The drainage. Yeah. Downhill meeting. That's correct, yeah. That's right along the.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. First off, I would need an approval of the last meeting's minutes as they were either in the paper or presented or sent to you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, first thing on the agenda is discussion on approval. We talked about before, changes to Article 3, and Jana, or you want to read the changes there?
So the road and highway setback will read as follows if approved. All buildings and structures shall be placed at least 200 feet from the county and state highway right-of-ways, at least 200 feet from the county road right-of-ways, and at least 133 feet from the center of any township road for the purpose of preventing hazardous accumulations of snow and to allow for future widening of public right-of-ways. Tree planting and shelter belts shall be planted in accordance with the USDA NRCS North Dakota Field Office Technical Guide recommendations.
The only addition or change we had at our last meeting, there's a lot of townships that have now using or are using the county zoning ordinances, and there was no wordage in our ordinances in reference of townships. So really the only change that Jana's talking about is that 133 feet from the township center road of right-of-way. So, any comments or discussion? If not, we'll make a motion to approve and we'll move on to the next thing.
I'll move to approve.
So what's the structure?
Well, that's what we were questioning, whether the structure, we consider it a building, but we were talking about drain tile pumps and stuff like that.
Or fence?
Is that a structure? We don't think so.
I don't think so.
But does anybody have a comment on it?
Shouldn't that term be defined a little bit? The word structure for things just like you said. Or a fence, isn't a fence a structure?
No.
Okay, as long as it's not.
We consider it as a build. I consider it, I shouldn't say we. I consider it as a building.
How about it says building and structure? Why don't you say building?
Structures, I think, is referring to grain bins. Would be my thing to it.
I mean, how much of a clarification do we need, I guess, is what the question is.
Have you ever checked what FEMA
FEMA for what?
says for a structure? Or like a fence?
A definition of a structure.
I haven't, I guess.
I mean, they get pretty specific in their regulations too.
Dictionary.
I'm looking right now. Yeah, it's physical structure, system structure, logical structure, makes your head hurt.
Well, if it's going to be any fence, we have to change.
Yeah, it's a structure isn't a fence. Isn't a structure a building?
FEMA has structures as a fence, cement slab, anything like that. So, depends on if you want to follow FEMA or maybe you should decide that before you have that, what you decide what a structure is.
Aren't we covered with the wording, Stan, where it says all buildings and structures? Isn't that pretty inclusive? And in my mind,
I
it
would
would be
think so.
inclusive of, we aren't excluding
And mind you, this has been in our zoning ordinance forever, the word structure. So we're only changing it to include townships now. So we're really talking about something new.
And why would a fence be within that right of way anyway?
Well, you'll have fences right on all kinds.
But
Yeah.
if they're there now, okay, as opposed to if you put it there after this is done.
I would hate to have to tell somebody they can't put their fence, has to be 100 feet away from the roadway, 133 feet.
Especially townships, I mean, now you're talking prairie trails and past roads that, yeah. I agree. Yes?
I said when I drove to Pheasant I wasn't gonna say anything.
Yeah, you broke that.
I did. But at the beginning, so I just pulled up on Wells County's website, found some zoning, and on page 13 it says a structure means anything constructed or erected, the use of which requires permanent location on the ground, including advertising signs and billboards.
That would be in the definitions portion of it, right?
Yeah.
Yep, I'm in the definitions portion on page 13.
2.75. 2.275.
Yes.
Do we have to change that? Do you want to change it?
Well, now that you have a definition for structure, do you need to? Structure being anything constructed or erected, the use of which requires permanent location on the ground.
I don't think so.
Fence isn't permanent usually.
No. I mean, it can be, but
Gee, but you're gonna be putting a fence 100 feet from the right-of-way of a road, township road, that ain't gonna, that ain't gonna fly.
Especially,
I mean, you gotta allow that.
especially some of these minimum maintenance roads where
right, that's what I said.
they're still township roads.
The fence would be right up to them, or very
Yeah.
close.
And then, being the townships are adopting these ordinances, do the townships still have control for the variances and stuff? If people want a variance?
No, the county does that.
We have a public hearing for variances in which township officials
So
are.
the township has no control over it whatsoever.
Well, we have a meeting like this, and the township supervisors or anybody in the township can come up and give their input. So, yeah, you would. But as far as you have some say, but you don't have the document per se. That's what you're really dealing with.
The word structure should come out of there, because buildings make sense, it's bins and all the things that you say obstruct snow. There's bins or things that obstruct snow, but there's piles of tile pumps that are going to continue to go in, which is absolutely obstructive. And fences are obstructive. Right, 2 rods is the rule on fences, I think, the normal rule.
What do you want to do? You could exclude pumps and fences and leave the definition of structures the same. I'm not very creative, would you?
I think we have to take structures out because it's too wide of a, because any fence, anything, I mean, I hear that or, you know, and at the beginning, I thought ag was exempt from a lot of these, a lot of the right-of-way things, but obviously they're not. I mean, that's the way I read it when we first started doing this, that, you know, an ag fence or a fence, but I guess you can't say, you know, you can't say a grain bin is exempt, and maybe you can, I don't know.
Well, I got a question about hopper bottom bins. Those aren't permanent structures. I can pull them around my yard. So if I line hopper bottom bins, am I out of compliance?
We got to redefine structure
And probably building,
or buildings.
or both. So 2.211, building means any structure designed or intended for shelter, housing, business, office, and accommodations of person, animal, chattels, or property. And structure there's a whole different page. Means anything constructed or erected, the use of which requires permanent location on the ground, including advertising signs and billboards. So it's permanent. Well, if you can move those grain bins around, that's not a permanent structure.
Well, I think we should just eliminate structure then and just put buildings. Because that include.
What my question to you is, what do you consider grain bins?
Well,
I mean, that's not a
Or you could
building.
put buildings and grain bins. Eliminate structure and put buildings and grain bins.
I just wonder, you know, how this went for so many years, and now we can't decide what a structure, a fence, and these things are. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We know where we live what a fence is doing for the purposes on a township road.
Right.
People aren't just putting fences there to put a fence there to torque somebody off. I mean, there's a purpose. It is what it is. I mean, it all came about grain bins. Someone was putting up some grain bins and wanted to know what that, so they weren't out of compliance. Are we thinking too much into this, or does it have to? I mean, maybe in today's world everything's got to be, but then we're going to have paragraphs on paragraphs on paragraphs of what it's going to be. Do we want that?
If anybody out there wonders, well, why hasn't this been changed? It's never been an issue, never been a problem. People
Well,
put
it didn't
fences where-
include township.
Right. Any other suggestions?
Well, if it hasn't been an issue for this long, do we just take the township thing out of there and do what we've been doing?
No, we're including the township.
I know that's being included. I'm saying there's never been an issue until we put townships in this.
Townships want to be included in this.
I mean, the wording, correct, but it's never been a problem is what I'm saying. But once we put 133 feet from the fence center of a township road, now we've got, okay, what's a structure, I mean, they're saying there was nothing about this until that point. Townships wasn't in this wording, the township road.
Right, but that issue never came up on county roads either, to this point.
True.
So
I'm just saying, if you take that out, you don't have to do anything
I
to
think
that.
we are reading too much into it. But what are you gonna do?
I guess one question I have, are all existing structures and fences grandfathered in?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Can you improve?
Can you what?
Improve it. You know, if you have to fix something, you're gonna put something new up, are you in violation?
New
I would say
is
no.
not defined as grandfathered in,
Well,
right?
It was existing, so you're
Just do a couple sections at a time. Do a couple sections at a time. Let it age a little bit, and then do a couple more sections.
Well, I got a question. If I've already got an existing grain facility site and I'm expanding it, now I'm going to be out of compliance
if you're too close to the road.
if I'm too close to the road. That's correct.
Correct?
Okay.
But you can ask for a variance.
But you can ask for variance.
That's true.
Like, a variance is like
I
any
can't.
section.
Now, our township signed up under your zoning bylaws. Now, if we don't approve that, we can ask to get out from underneath the county.
Yep.
Okay.
See, and I think that's the thing we're gonna run into with the windmill situation too. If we set our too close or too narrow, the townships will want to get out, the ones who don't agree.
And they can have a meeting like this. In the township.
Which they haven't been doing.
Okay, what do you wanna do?
So they have 66 feet of right of way, 33 on each side, that they cannot be in. Correct?
as of now, right?
Yes.
And this is 133.
From the center.
From the center of the road out.
Right. It's basically adding 100 feet. It's always been 33.
On a township road, not a county road.
No, that's what we're talking about.
Right. You still don't think that's real far.
No. It is if you got a lot of fence.
I mean, that fence that's gonna be along there is more likely gonna be barbed wire fence, it's not gonna be fence that's catching a lot of snow.
Right.
And I don't think the snow is really the issue with this. I don't. I mean, we could say, oh, yes, because of snow. But if you took 100 feet away from every road, you know, that's a long ways. And on a mile, that would be 12 and a half acres.
Yet, I think for the intent of this, we're talking about fence, we're talking about, and I don't know if anybody, unless you had something in existence that you'd add on to, would want to build a house, a grain bin, any big structure that close to a township road, would you?
There's
Would
a
you?
lot of them.
Bill, would you? We gotta,
I'm trying to
be
think.
here all night.
Just a half mile west of Adolph Shirley, there's a guy with, he's got a pasture with goats, and he's got buildings, I'll bet they're within 130 feet of the road. You know, a little 8 by 12 goat building.
That structure.
Repeat the
Definition of a structure.
Structure means anything constructed or erected, the use of which requires permanent location on the ground, including advertising signs and billboards.
So you have to move all the signs. Billboards and signs have to
You
be
know,
moved.
we're really dealing with two different things here, in that for tonight, we made a motion the last meeting to do 133 feet from a township road, right?
Correct.
That's really what we're dealing with here. Defining structure is almost a separate issue, isn't it? But yeah, it would affect that 133 feet.
Or you could table it and have another public hearing in which you address the meaning of building and structure at a later date.
I really don't know if you can come up with a definition that's gonna fit all that stuff in there to what it is. In my mind, I think, you know, you add on there, except fences can be the 33 feet. And existing grain bin facilities that are already there might get built on, they're grandfathered in as well, even if you put there. But if you start a whole new one, this is what it is. But if there's existing there, that's there. Like if you have to take down a fence, you shouldn't have to move it back to 133
I
feet.
don't think anybody wants a fence moved back 133 feet.
Correct. So to me, everything that's existing should be there. And if someone has a grain facility that's, let's say, 75 feet from the center of the road, they should be able to expand on that and put a new grain bin as long as it's, if it's that same distance there, just try not to go any closer.
Nobody would want a power line that far out in the field. Power line is going to be described as that, and you would want a power line out in the middle of the field. Why wouldn't you want the power line? You don't wanna do that. You don't wanna make rules like that.
Right,
Our township
power
board
line's
voted.
right off
The power lines are on the right of way, right on the outside.
Not all of them. Look at them big towers down south of town,
Yeah,
those great big
yeah,
steel
these-
ones.
They're right off. I mean, but they've had to come in and get approval
Variances, right, and approvals
for power lines.
for power lines. I think what,
I got a question. If the structure is defined as billboards and signs, do those have to be moved back 133 feet? Or do you just take those out of that definition?
any new one would.
So if you were gonna put a billboard or a sign up, you'd have to get a variance?
If you wanted it closer than that.
Can't see a billboard at 133 feet, can you? Or maybe
200 feet from the county road. 200 feet.
200 feet?
From the county
200
right
feet
of
on
way.
a county road,
So
it's a
you,
highway.
275 feet from the right of way, from the road.
So what do you think? I think what Warren said, that's the intent, we just gotta get the wordage down.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
I'm not from around here, but I've got some experience in some of this recently. I live down on Highway 13 going east and west from Edgeley. And we had some people, highway department came in and said we couldn't have a fence in a certain place. So we went and got our abstracts out and started looking at abstracts. And all your abstracts in our area that we farm in, there is a township roads, county roads, it all tells you on the abstract how far out they can build. They have to stay within the abstract that's listed. And like Highway 13, most of it is 100 feet from the center of the road. And there are cases when they built the road, they bought more land at the time so that they could take dirt out of there. So there's some places along that road, they have to keep their fence further back and can't farm into those areas. And if you look at your township's abstracts, it also tells you they built some new bridges in our township. And they had to come out and buy extra land so they could build the bridge wide enough so they could put it in there. So they bought a half an acre on each side of the bridge out into my property because it isn't wide enough to put a wide bridge in there. But the rest of the road has to stay within the structure of that, so it's already defined in your abstracts and in your county and townships where you can build and when you can't build. That's already defined, but the state highway, most of it is 100 feet setback. But it's in your abstracts telling you where the line is, because some of them will vary, because at the time they build the road, they had to come in and get a lease, and some of those are in a permit to come through with it, not a lease.
Easement?
Easement. And there's some places there's no easements at all, and that legality is, what'd you say, 32 or 33 feet when there's just a prairie trail or something through there?
Yep.
So that's all defined. If you'll just look at your abstracts, you'll see it.
Yeah, we know it's 33 feet for ownership, I guess. Whether you can build something is what we're trying to figure out.
It tells you right in your abstract what you can do.
Okay, we really need to move on, guys. What do you want to do? And
I make a motion that we remove Township Road.
But there were towns now, well, before you sure you want to make that motion, there was a number of townships though that's why we're here. They wanted.
I wanted wordage in here to change, to add this to it.
They wanted it added to it.
Can I say something? We're the township that brought this up because we had a guy come.
Thank you.
How far back? Well, he wanted to know if he was legal to build there or not. That's what started this whole problem. And we couldn't tell him because it didn't say. So, I mean, in my mind, 133 feet for buildings is not out of line. I don't think anybody's gonna make somebody stop putting a fence, but then you got the water thing and you got another old can of worms, and that's another old can of worms. I don't know how you fix it.
Unless we remove structure.